There we go. So, welcome everyone. I'm Alison from the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association. Nice to see you all here. So here we are, kind of week two of our postgrad masterclass of for careers. So today, winning cover letter and selection criteria, which is very, very important. Absolutely. So just a reminder that Bec is back next week, next Friday, and she'll be doing resume and LinkedIn. And
Mm.
so I'll post a few links if you're interested in that workshop in the chat box. So welcome everyone, and over to you, Susie, Bec.
Beautiful. Susie, would you like to say anything, or would you like me just to continue and include you right throughout as we go?
Um, well, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting here marking, so I will be in front of my computer, let me tell you.
Oh.
Thanks. I'm not sure what I want to do today. It is lovely. I am excited. We have sunshine. I've hung my washing on the line, ready to go.
Yeah.
So I just want to reiterate that the careers team are here to support you. And I think Hassini has booked in for an appointment, actually. So we're here to support you after this class. If you need, if you're applying for a job later on, or you're looking for part-time work, or you need help completing these documents and things that Bec's starting you off with today, the careers team are on every campus, so you can book in with us. Anything to do with your career. So it's not necessarily about the course that you're doing, but where you might like to go and how you can action a plan to get to where you want to go. I would also say that cover letters and selection criteria they're like the portal that gets you in the gate. So it's the first thing that they tend to read when you're applying for a job. So learning what Bec's talking about today in fine-tuning how you make that fit your application when they open it and they realize, wow, this person is the person I want to employ. So it is they're very important documents and skills that you need to learn how to, like strategies to make them achieve what you want, which is to get to interview and get the job. So that's, I guess, Bec will show you where to find us, but you can easily find us on the SCU homepage by putting a / and careers after the SCU homepage, careers with an S, and it will take you through and show you how to book in with us and to find our resources as well. So I'll leave it with you, Miss Bec. Enjoy your day. You'll have a lovely time with Bec. She's very enthusiastic about this topic and to achieve your goals. So good luck, everyone.
Enthusiastic about most things except technology. We have to be enthusiastic about technology, don't we? Because it is the future of work. All right. So thank you so much, Susie and Alison. And my name is Bec Brown. I am super happy to be here with you, working with the SCU Careers team and the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association, who is hosting this event for us today. And we've got another 3 weeks, so a beautiful bundle of everything, a strong sample of everything that you need. And as Susie mentioned, her team is there to support you beyond this. I will run some one-on-one sessions to off the back of this to support people that like to have that time to talk through their needs. But Susie and her team are ongoing, and as she mentioned, they are at all the campuses. There are staff there online, so you can visit them face-to-face, or you can have online appointments. It's often really nice to meet, to have that face-to-face time with one of the practitioners as well to talk about your needs. And I want to congratulate you guys if you're listening at home and if you've made the effort to turn up here today. you're already winning as far as I'm concerned, because the nature, talked quite a bit about this last week, but it also relates to everything every week that we're going to talk about, is that your success in your career is up to you. And there are things absolutely that you can't control, but there are lots of things that you can control. For example, if you're doing cover letters and resumes and have to address really detailed criteria, and you find you're not getting any wins, and you've even come to the workshops, perhaps what some people will do is they lose faith, for example, or they think it's something about them personally, but it's not. It's just understanding, in most instances, it's actually understanding what the requirements are, but also some of the hints and tricks. So I'm going to share with you, we've got a little bit of light going there, share with you as much as I can in this session. If you missed last week, I think Alison will be able to pop in there the link to last week. Last week's class, even if you, I'm a big fan of listening to things and folding the washing or cleaning the house. I just love it because it gets me doing what I need to do, but I feel like I'm moving forward with things I'm interested in, things I'm working on, and moving towards goals personally and professionally. And you could actually have a listen, because it's a nice segue for some of the things that we're going to expand upon today, particularly around identifying and taking the time to engage in some of the things that Susie's team has in terms of personality tests, finding out about your values, even having one-on-one consultations with the team, so that you can find out more about yourself, where you want to go, and then how you can then, in this week's session, gain those skills about how to articulate that and communicate that in a way that is effective. So let's pop the slides up. I'm just going to have to swing between the two. Can you see the slides there, Alison?
Yes, we can.
Beautiful. All right.
No worries.
Thank you very much. So today we're going to be talking about winning cover letters and selection criteria, and a point that keeps jumping to my mind as I begin this session is something that happened this morning actually with a cover letter. So in a different context, I work with students doing preparing cover letters, and I was really it's been I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months since I've been capacity of reviewing cover letters over the break and back again. And what we have found, we all know that we're using ChatGTP, and students are becoming more confident with using it more regularly. And what I noticed was this particular cover letter was it had some great content in it. The student had used a sample in terms of giving the student information of what to put into each of the paragraphs. But what I also noted was that because the student wasn't familiar perhaps with some of the words and had taken verbatim, and what I mean, literally taken the content and put it into the cover letter, it wasn't entirely appropriate. So, for example, one of the ways the student described themselves was aggressive, and in our, amongst other really appropriate words. And how do we get around that? Well, perhaps if English isn't your first language and it's your first time refining, writing a cover letter, perhaps that's where, if it's immediately after this session or at another point in time that you get that expertise of having use those tools, use them discerningly, but if English isn't your first language, to get some feedback. And even for those, we have plenty of domestic students that also that feedback from cover letters and selection criteria. I think it's probably, I can't even remember what the percentage would be that uses the career service. So this applies to everybody. But I just wanted to highlight that because these tools are fantastic, but we want to make sure that we are vetting our use of them in terms of the information that we use. So just backtrack a little bit. So Susie is with the Southern Cross University careers team. The appointments, they can also help with job vacancies. They've also got some fantastic samples, and we're going to talk about resumes next week, and we're also the following week we will talk about interviews. And one of the things that I mentioned to a class yesterday was that what I have observed is that the most poorly done elements are actually the cover letter and selection criteria and the interview. So a lot of people spend a lot of time on the resume, but it's actually getting the initial, as Susie sort of gave that, alluded to, she mentioned with the cover letter, but also what I have observed, particularly in recent years, in an online context, spending time doing practice interviews in an online environment, in particular with the COVID and that shift, is that students are not, and these are really, our top students are ones that will come to these workshops. So please keep that in mind to come. It's so awkward to prepare for interviews, but the only way we get more confident is doing things that make us more confident. And confidence is a muscle. And so we can actually improve our capacity to present in a way that is more confident. And we do that by practice, 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 practice. Right. So here are the essentials. You want to make sure you have your name, your employer's name, the date, and in the climate that we're in, or in the work environment that we're in. Is that a message for me? Oh, it's just yes. Beautiful. Sorry. In the work environment that we are in, we're going to have a really, really broad age group. So you will have, I'm working on a team at the moment. We've got a lady in that team, 70 plus, perhaps close, I don't know, maybe even 75. And so you've got, and then we have people of 20 years old, perhaps all working on a team in a workplace together. Now, how does that relate to a cover letter? Well, old school. So I'm partway between that. Wish I was on the lower side. However, you will find that in terms of business communication, they will have a 20-year-old perhaps, and a 75-year-old may have very different expectations of how we present ourselves formally on paper. And so we encourage you to err on the side of caution. And there is still, even though we all communicate, with love hearts and emojis, and that happens in increasingly. A couple of years ago, there's no way we would have put love hearts in academia. I'm working in a team at the moment, and there's love hearts going everywhere. However, there is still an expectation that a cover letter will be a formal letter style of document. Now, I would always, and some of the things that you hear me talk about, I've either done it myself for trial and error, or I've seen other people do it. I try to share without all the gory details, but things that do and don't work. And my observation, I'm sure Susie would agree with this, that there is no benefit in terms of really quickly applying for a job on LinkedIn that gives you an option of not including just as an example, not including a cover letter, and you're the first to apply without a cover letter. No correlation necessarily between that being that you will get that job. What you will find is most employers prefer, and if that means you applying 2 hours later but having a much slicker application, that would always, 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 always be the suggested approach. And I would also say that however you communicate with your future employee in this process, that you keep it formal. Okay. So with that, and we'll show you what that looks like in terms of the sample in a minute, the date and the employer's name and your name at the top of the letter. You guys are doing postgraduate study, which is super duper duper impressive. And in order to be here, you will have done some undergraduate study. And in, I don't know, probably 90% of cases, it's appropriate to mention that additional study. It bolsters, it tells more about your story. Mention that in your cover letter. Often students just forget and they put it just in their resume, but it's part of who you are. It may be a different undergraduate degree, which you may or may not feel appropriate to provide the narrative of, but it demonstrates further. I mean, of course, they're going to know you've done other education, but you want some things you need to spell out to them. And in your pathway to postgraduate study, perhaps you did really well in your study. Your achievements don't have to be academic achievements, and they don't necessarily have to be sporting achievements. There may be other achievements that you have in terms of projects. They may be other courses that you've done. They may be, additional online learning. They may be assignments, projects, volunteering, all sorts of things you can frame as achievements. Also, I think this is really important, is that you are only at where you're at right now, and for everybody, there is a time in their lives where they're at the beginning of building this suite of like a portfolio of things that demonstrate who you are. And I think just even by taking the chance, even if you're listening at home, you've actually taken that self-managed step towards knowing the additional things you can do to make your cover letter and your resume and your application more and more attractive as time goes in your career. Previous work experience, volunteering, other training, and you can weave these into section 4 under achievements. There's lots of different approaches to this. You may join professional associations, so it might be psychology, social work, education, it might be accounting, etc. Would anybody like to tell me about a cover letter or their experience writing a cover letter? Oh, how the difference between cover letter and resume? Oh, good, great. Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you, Rissa. Yeah, so because thank you for asking that, because I've been teaching this a long time and I forget things that people who have never done one don't even know what that means. So the cover letter is it's a one-page document that goes before your resume. It is it's like a snapshot and in a letter form, so a business letter that goes before the resume. It's your detailed introduction. Not in every case, but an employer may potentially look at your cover letter and then go, oh, you're not perhaps the person you're not the right fit, or you haven't answered, really importantly, answered the criteria from the job advertisement. So let me just run this slightly differently. What I might do is just to sort of, for you, this may be relevant for, let's find a job. All right, here we go. Let's see if I can share. I'll go back to this one. Just on that, before I take a slightly different approach, Masam and Sharon. Hello, Sharon. And has anybody done a cover letter before or had an experience with a cover letter or?
Yes.
Oh, please share if you feel comfy.
Should I talk?
Yes,
Some
please.
past experiences about making a cover letter?
Yeah, please.
Well, actually, I made cover letter in the last time in when I came in Australia for a job.
Yes.
Not job actually, it's like expression of interest for a scholarship like job.
Yes.
So Australia is new to me because I'm just here for a couple of years.
Yes.
I don't have any experience to knock the English speaking people. But my experiences were good because I covered the snapshot of my resume, what you told before. So it was wonderful, and I accepted as the only recipient of that scholarship after interviews, couple of interviews. So my experiences were good, but still I'm thinking I need to improve a lot in making cover letter and also resume and also interviews, because I will be knocking to the English speaking people shortly after my PhD. So
Yes.
it will take a lot of experiences for me to demonstrate my previous and current skills and expertise. So I'm looking for achieving something from your workshop to develop
Beautiful.
my own skills regarding to making resume, cover letter, and also other stuff. What do you say? Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I always think coming to these sessions is a bit like going to the doctor or the hairdresser or, or getting your car, seeing your mechanic, because you've got to do these things, and then having specialists, and that's where Susie's team can give you that ongoing specialist support as you keep moving, in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, when we come in incrementally during the year. So thank you so much for sharing, because I commend you for showing up.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to share where they're up to with their cover letters? Okay. So what I thought I might like, somebody pop the mic on?
I don't mind jumping in.
Oh, please do. Thank you.
Because
It's good because I think we solve problems together, and I love that. So please.
So I had to apply for this job with the Postgraduate Association maybe about 12, 18 months ago. And so writing the cover letter is really can be hard because you're talking about yourself as if you're another person. Like, Alison has done this and Alison is good as that. And, so
Yes.
it's like introducing yourself and kind of stating that I'm applying for this position. This is my background. So, I wrote it, but I got a friend to just read it for me before I
Nice.
sent it
Yes.
because, even they're not from the university, they just sort of picked up a few things that my expression was awkward because we don't often have to write about ourselves, like our achievements or, things that we've done in the community or whatever. So, yeah, it's quite hard to do. I find it easier to write a resume because that's sort of like, you know, more systematic, I suppose. I had this job and then I worked for these people. Yeah. So the cover letter, yeah, is it's challenging, but it comes with practice, being able to write about yourself.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Alison, because I think that there's a few really key things that you have highlighted there. It is an introduction to the employer. It is awkward, but it also is about practice. And I think that's brilliant. The other couple of key things that you said, which I think are brilliant, is you got somebody else to have a look at it. And again, I would, if I were applying for a job tomorrow, and I'm sure Susie would say the same thing, and Alison, that I would still get, we're in the business of doing this, but we would still get at least one other person to have a look at it. And so I guess I mentioned that really to highlight how important it is in terms of getting you over the line. And the final thing, that there was something else that you said, Alison, at the very end that was also, I wanted to get a friend to vet it, knowing what to write. We're going to talk about that. Never mind, it's gone. Susie, is there anything you would like to add? And we're going to just go through a few more slides and so forth. Anything you would like to add there? We're going to talk about tailoring. Oh, that's what I was going to say. In the case of, say, Alison, or for yourselves, once you get a hit, I'll call it a hit. Once you get a hit on your cover letter, so somebody or your application, and you're getting interviews, you know that if you are going for similar jobs, that you're hitting the mark. So that is really, really important, because if you are applying for jobs and you're not getting a hit, there's something wrong. And it may not be, I think the most important thing is it's not something wrong with you. There's
a comment in the chat from Risa. The cover letter overlaps the resume and it feels like a summary.
Oh, yeah. So summary or a snapshot. Thank you so much, because please keep typing away in there, because it gives me even more things that come up all the time. So these thoughts are really, really important. One thing that often happens, and we've gone a little bit informal here, but I think it's important too that we cover the things that are really coming up as well. One of the things that happens really commonly, I think, I see when people are spending all their time on their resume, there is amazing wins, achievements, things that have happened that are in the resume, but they're not in the cover letter. And you don't want it to be entirely repetitious. However, if you write this really boring cover letter and then you've got all these amazing achievements in your resume, they may never get there. All right. So I think that point that you've made there, Risa, is really important, because before you send off your cover letter, have a look at your resume and all the things that you have done, and make sure that you have highlighted, framed that anything that is super duper unique to you, that could be relevant. And there's so many things that we do in our personal and professional lives that could be relevant for the working world. So great points there. It doesn't overlap. I guess I would say that if they were to never read your resume, you want to give them the full snapshot of your best and your suitability. And I'm going to show you a job ad in a minute. Your suitability to the job that you have applied for. So that if your resume just, got stuck on the printer and all they got was the cover letter. You want to make sure that you wow them, and also you wow the automatic tracking system, which is a whole other thing. You want to wow them, yeah? But you want to tell them the best of the best for your suitability for that job, so that if they never get to the resume, it doesn't matter. Susie's popped her camera on. I would love to hear your comments, Susie.
I'm not sure where you're going after this, so I won't say a lot.
Beautiful. Thank you.
They all have to have the same thread, Rissa, so that the person reading it knows it's authentic. So if your cover letter, they will check your resume and make sure, okay, you might say in your cover letter, I'm very good with my communication with diverse people. And so when they open your resume, the support will be there in detail about how what did you do to say that? Like, have you worked, in hospitality? Have you worked as a customer service rep? So the cover letter highlights, that's the broader things that you've done, but the evidence for what you've done is in your resume. And then when you answer the selection criteria, which they might ask you to tell them about your experience as a communicator, you will then tell stories about some of the people that you may have had to deal with. So there is a thread through your whole document application that they can keep checking that it's authentic, because people do, and they're not very sensible, but they do make things up. People might say, I'm very good at something on their cover letter, but there's no evidence of that in the resume. So the reader, the employer thinks, this doesn't make sense. Also, the cover letter for me is, I agree with Bec, it's 100% the first thing they're going to read. So they will often give you clues around the job description and around the selection criteria. So pick those things that they're looking for to highlight in your cover letter. It becomes a summary, yes, of what you've done in relation to what they're looking for. And I always describe it like a glove and a hand, that you're supplying them with the information that they feel like, wow, this person fits like a glove on my hand. They're using words that I use out of the application document. They're telling me exactly what I need to know. But if you do that in your cover letter, they'll put you in a pile to read. You'll go further. If you don't put it in the cover letter, like Bec says, they may just not even read it. So it's a critical document to have done well, because it may be your first and only chance to get your foot in that door to get that job.
Nice. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks, Susie, because you kind of gave a really beautiful segue to what I thought, mixing it up slightly, but moving in the theme of what, what's coming up in this workshop, rather than me just sitting here going, next slide. But you've done a beautiful segue to the fit, because from an employer's perspective, it is all about fit. And Susie's highlighted something really important around that sense of a glove. And what it's reminded me, before I show you, when we have a little look at a job ad and approaching it from that angle, is that you must don't just go, I know it could be natural to go on to Seek and you're like, oh, that job sounds good. Great. Okay, so I'll apply for that job. And then you see 10 other jobs and like, apply for that one, apply for that one, apply for that one. And then you've got a reasonably good cover letter and you just change the name and off you go. And then you're surprised that you're not getting any hits. And in Susie's feedback there, what it really reminded me about in this process is that the next step that I'm going to show you about, in terms of looking at the job advertisement. After you have read a potential job advertisement, and as part of your process of applying for these roles, whatever they may be, whether it's a part-time one or an internship or a graduate position, or some work as a research assistant while you're completing your PhD, whatever it may be, is that you want to, in order to get that sense of a glove and that fit, you want to get that by using the language that they use, the connection to the type of person that they say they want. You're not going to necessarily give them the same words back again, but you will, the culture and the essence and the values, some of the things that we talked about last week, that is what you want to be communicating. And that seems like quite an abstract thing to do, but I have, in the last few years, have been exploring this, practicing this, and trying to drill down even further to this, is that but our biggest suggestion as practitioners, career practitioners, is that you apply for, put a cover letter and a resume and an application together for jobs that light you up, okay? If you read a job advertisement and you are bored and tired and exhausted because there's 20 million things you're supposed to do and you don't feel energized and excited, it sounds a bit hippie, but there is more science in this arena around emotions and motivation, etc. You will communicate and feel it will be an easier process to apply for a job and write a cover letter for something that really excites you. So let's just have a little, I just quickly put up a job behind us. Let me just see, I'll just have to flick my sharing features and I'll just see if I'll just stop sharing. Now, let's see if we can share this one. Okay, cool. It's going to be behind here. This one. Not that one. Stop sharing that one. Start sharing. Here we go. All right. So I've just found a job for a driver, a guide. AAT Kings are a tour company. They've been around for many years. It'd be a nice job for one of our tourism and hospitality students based out in, or our business students based out in Alice Springs, a good, reputable company. And it's a nice job ad in that they've taken the time and effort to put some sort of imagery in terms of what that job would look like. And they've laid out this really nice, this nice little intro to really inviting you and exciting you for this. Now, or ideally, with a great effort. Here's a little bit of a ding-a-ling-a-ling. Aside from not applying for a job that doesn't excite you, or what I was just saying before, also really importantly, before you go even step into writing the cover letter, you want to make sure that it's not always the case that if they don't put love into that advertisement, then they're not going to be a great employer. However, it can be a little revealing in terms of, the effort and the formality and the care and the love that has gone into trying to recruit a potential employee. But most importantly, does it excite you having a look? So just really quickly embarking on a dream journey as a tour guide, etc., why choose us? So when you're putting your cover letter together, always, and I know that Susie would 100% say the same thing, is that do not write your cover letter without actually having the job advertisement either printed out or on the screen, and you highlight all the things that they're telling you. So why choose us? We're not a company. We're a legacy of exploration. They've been around for a long time. And then they're giving you so much information about, so that they've been in the business for a long time, that you get the chance to immerse yourself in the red centre of Alice Springs. So you get to picture yourself as a driver. They're giving you, they're creating a lot of, idea of imagery and experience that you're going to have in this role. This isn't just a job, and it's apprenticeship style, etc. Now, all the way through, and they've even included a sweet little video, a YouTube video in here, is that they've given you clues all the way through this about what they're looking for. So not only are they giving you clues around what you'll be expected, but they're also giving you a sense of, they're trying to entice you into having a wonderful, exciting and unique experience out there. They've given you an idea of what your key responsibilities or duties are and what's in it for you, all right? So when you're putting your cover letter together, please, 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 always, always, always have your cover letter and the job advertisement, and you are addressing, you are answering the type of person, so a type of person that they'd be looking for, in this sort of role, that, the love of Australian outdoors, a love of adventure, etc., etc. So you're going to communicate, they're giving a hint of the type of person that they want, the type of organisation theirs is, and then what you would be expected to do in that job. So in that job, you have to deliver so that unparalleled customer experience. So that's not just giving people a good time, it's unparalleled, which means, they're indicating that those experiences must be 5-star, provide captivating commentary with flair and professionalism, safety, so they know what they're about. They're about unique experiences, professionalism, safety. And we certainly know in Australia the safety of tour operators. It's the end of a business if you have an experience where people are unsafe, and managing risks when you're taking people out on tours. Unleashing your storytelling. Oh yes, etc. Good. Okay, cool. All right. So please, please, please do not write your cover letter. Use ChatGTP, absolutely, to use it, but don't just type in tour guide. Tour guide, you can definitely type in tour guide and use some of the, keys, duties and responsibilities, and look at how, so perhaps, you, I don't know, it's a bit random, but, you've been an international, you're an international student, and you've attended, I know certainly at the Gold Coast, there are tours that have that they take students on. So you've had these sorts of experiences, just as an indirect way to answer that. So now I'm going to go back. Just give me one sec, and pop back into our slides here. So I'm going to stop sharing that one. There, stop sharing that one. I'm just going to share back on our slides again. Go. So when you're preparing, we've had this, Susie's team actually created this this slide many years ago, but I love it. I love a visual, and I love visuals when we're preparing, when we do assignments, when we have a template. I love this because it gives you, I would take a copy of this. I do just get a big A4 piece of paper, and then it helps you visually see where you can expand, because often we think, I haven't done anything, I haven't done enough, or I haven't done enough for my age, or I've been caring for, family, or, siblings, or you've had a disability, or you come from another country and you're concerned about your other work experience. There's everybody, every single person I have ever encountered associated with their career, some of the highest achievers on the planet still have anxieties around things they have or haven't achieved. It's really normal, but if you use this visual, it gives you a chance to unpack things that you can, and I'm conscious of the end and the beginning and the middle as I talk through this. This can give you a visual on, and it isn't every I guess subheading in here, but just some key ones. This will help you with your resume. It will help you with your cover letter, and it will help you with your selection, if there is, and I won't go into that right now, but a separate selection criteria and the interview. So just really quickly, this can capture, so for example, you could, at university, perhaps it's so what are you proud of? Perhaps it's some teamwork that you've done. Perhaps it's a particular project. Perhaps it's a piece of research. Perhaps it's a case study you've done. Perhaps it's some sort of creative outcome from some other project that you've done at uni. Perhaps you've been involved in something on campus. Perhaps it's sports uni. Perhaps you've gone on the ski trip and you, next year, end of this year, after you've been on the ski trip, perhaps you've been on the ski trip and you helped out, one of the staff during that ski trip doing something. So when you look at it this way, you'll be surprised at what you have done. Perhaps you have a family business. I had a student yesterday, and over the years growing up, local person, he's helped his mum with her small business. It's a small like Airbnb. Perhaps it's stuff that you've done at home. So even traveling abroad, traveling to Australia, etc. Hobbies, interests, just try to make sure obviously that they're relevant for the position, etc. I think that's a nice place to just pause for a minute, and we will take, I don't want to lose you, so we will take, Harry, nice to see you. I'm glad you're here. We will take, let's take 7 minutes, have a little break, go to the bathroom, do what you need to do, and we'll come back. That'll give us 1 minute to get settled to kick off then at 11 o'clock. See you guys soon. We're going to drill down even further. Just remember that all of these workshops sort of feed into one another, and might even show you where some shows Susie's website too at the end. All right.
Bec, could you just pause the recording and then we'll put it back on at 11?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, just 2 more minutes and we'll be all set to go again. All right, so hopefully that didn't cut in two. Hello everybody, and we are back again. And I've decided to bring along a fantastic, one of my favourite documents for cover letters. You're welcome to, you'll get a copy of the slides, but this document isn't embedded in the slides, so please feel free to take some screenshots of it. It's really handy. I would save it, send the screenshots to yourself and save it onto your computer so you have it for later. I think it's really, really useful. So I'm going to give you the visual. We all love, I'm going to give you a template. So I won't go through all of this. It's been talking about some of the things that both I and Susie and Alison have been talking about. But here, and I'll expand on all of this in a minute, competency statements. But here it's got lots and lots of, one of the hardest things, I mean, now we've got ChatGTP. However, I know when we're putting our resumes, cover letters, selection criteria, which we'll talk about shortly, together, the cover letter is a form of addressing selection criteria. So the criteria for the job, but we're often looking for words. So I love this document because it's got lots of nice words on there. And then just scrolling up, more words for when we, the key things we do, organize, manage, lead, lots of great words on here. I love this document. Also some great words again when you don't want ChatGTP to describe you as aggressive. Is some other lots of really positive, as it says there, positive characteristics. You're calm, capable, confident, bubbly, bright, innovative, intelligent, etc. So lots of great words here. And then how you go about taking actions and doing words here. You founded this, you coached this, you checked that, you planned that, you tested that, you solved this. Lots of these things you do at university. You assigned this, so you were working in a group and you had to assign tasks to each other. You assisted on a project. You accessed documents. You designed a computer program, a document, an Excel spreadsheet. You resolved issues with your login, etc. Now for the thing that you will find most handy is, you'll see, oddly enough, that the date, this was actually created, this sample was created there's actually not too many things that we use, historically 10 years ago. There are things that have changed, but back to where I started this is that this is what a formal cover letter should look like for the layout. Now, see if I can just bring it down a little. Yeah. So now, please take a screenshot of that so you know. And the reason I love it is because it tells you what to put. You don't need to put cover letter template at the top, but I would suggest that you put the date and that you put your name and your contact details and your address, and then lay out your letter just like this. I would also suggest that you make maximum use of the page. So I would actually suggest that you have smaller, less space here. But otherwise, I still love this this sample, because it just gives you a heading of what you need to put in each paragraph. So let's just quickly work through each paragraph here and what you could, would, what works, and then you've got a nice snapshot, and we'll continue on. So I think I shared last week, we did a little bit of cover letters last week. The opening couple of paragraphs are super duper important. You want to give them the best of who you are in that to encourage them to keep reading. Generally, that would look like, if you were you've done other study, you've got part-time job, you've partway through a particular PhD that relates to the job that you're going for, but even mentioning your PhD or your postgraduate study is relevant for everything. If you're going to work in, it's a part-time job in Woolworths, being a postgraduate student shows of any degree or form of study. Postgraduate study demonstrates you're a high achiever and that you have motivation, ambition, and dedication to furthering yourself via education. So you want to mention where you have heard about the role. If it's a friend or a colleague or a lecturer or a tutor, and you get to email a cover letter to somebody, life is a lot easier. But in many cases, when you're entering or re-entering the workforce, those opportunities come later as you meet more people and you build your network. So what will be really important, super duper 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 important, is that you can do as much research associated with the role itself and the types of skills associated with that type of work as a tour guide, for example, because most often students will be applying with a cover letter through something like Seek, Jura, Indeed, ethicaljobs.com, and they all use automatic tracking systems. So they will have already said the types of skills and experience that they want their candidate. So there's a culling that happens. And what I mean by culling is that, unfortunately, different to 10 years ago, is that a computer is going to decide in many cases, if you're applying through a third party like Seek, that a computer very sadly will be assessing you first. So the challenge for people now is that they need to convince both the computer, the automatic tracking system, and then also you need to wow the employer. So I'm really glad that you are here. And in fact, I'll do it next week as part of resumes is your Seek. Many of you will apply through Seek, your Seek profile. So make sure you come along for that, because I've got some hints and tips that can actually, as part of your application process, because you will apply for a job in many instances through something like Seek, where you're going to upload a cover letter and a resume. So I will share some tips as part of the resume workshop for you next week. And the reason that's relevant to this now is because your cover letter and resume are being assessed by the same machine under the same criteria for that job applicant. So your cover letter and your resume as it goes through the automatic tracking system.
There's an interesting sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I was like, where did that sound come from?
Oh, it's only me. Just an interesting question from Shannon in the chat about
awesome. Thank you so much.
putting your address in.
Beautiful. All right, let's go. So there's a few things in there. So so I'll just track back through the questions. How the difference between the cover letter and resume? Yep. Okay, got that bit. Okay, good. And then can we get a copy? May we get the PDF?
Or the PowerPoint?
Good question. No, with this document, I'll send it out at the end. I don't think there's any because it's an SCU. Yes, it's an SCU. I didn't say it before because I was thinking about the copyright on it, but it's an SCU document. So that's, yes, absolutely, that's fine. It will come out in the bundle with the PowerPoint slides. So a big yes to that. And then Shannon, would you put your address on it? Even if, this is something I've been thinking. I have various times where this comes up. And we as a careers team many years ago, well, not that many years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, talked about the whole address thing, no address thing. What I would say is that you don't actually have to put your address on there. However, and if you think so, for example, destination, particularly cities, can be city-centric, all right? And they may not consider you because you're in a regional part of Victoria, for example, and they might decide that you've got to commute or whatever. They know the transport system's not great. And so I think be discerning. Also that there can be biases. It's really sad, but there can be biases around particular suburb. There's all these sort of biases that can occur. So generally, I would say, generally speaking, I would say yes, include it. But if you're going for a remote, and I was thinking about this the other day, if you're going for a remote job and the whole team and it says very clearly it's a remote job, but the whole team are in Sydney or Melbourne and you live in a different city or a different state in a different region, and then you're not in the kind of the club kind of thing, that bias can, I believe, absolutely occur. So I would be discerning, and I would be increasingly discerning around putting that on. If it's it's a Gold Coast and you live somewhere on the Gold Coast, sure, or it's Sydney and you live in that part of the Sydney. But if you are outside of that area and you think it may be an issue, put all your other contact details in there, and you are free if they want to know where you live. And that's one of there's all sorts of pros and cons post-pandemic, and we all know that virtual and online work is or virtual remote working. There are more opportunities. We are working differently, but what I am observing is there still is bias about you live in Melbourne or you live in Sydney, even in that remote space. So great question.
Sorry.
Yes, Liv, I've told him, to keep it off. And so I would always trust your own gut around something, I would say. But also, with that said, and we'll talk about this when it comes up the interview bit, talk to like Susie or somebody about something you're worried about, because sometimes we can carry that into an application, or in particular we carry that into an interview, and they're not even worried or thinking about that, and it can be a past experience about being judged about the glasses we wear or the school we went to, and then we think we're going to be judged on that when we go into the interview. So thank you, Susie.
Oh, sorry. I just want to add, if you I'm currently working with a lot of the nurses that are applying in different states for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if you need to explain,
Yeah.
if you're studying at SCU, they're going to know that you live on this side of the coast.
Yep.
For nursing, it's a face-to-face course.
Yes.
But I think in your cover letter, just state, I've got family living there, or my partner's recently moved, I have to move to wherever, you can put a little explanation if you feel like you need to, because all your jobs are going to show where you've worked as well. Like there's going to be that thread I was talking about.
That's true.
Yeah, it is about having the preparation to respond to it if you're asked. And I totally agree with Bec.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're worried about things, our lack of experience.
Yeah.
Many, say nurses again, are worried that they don't have any experience and they're going for a job. Well, of course they know you've just finished your course.
Yeah.
They know those things. So I would never try to hide things, but I'd be really prepared to have a response as to why you're excited about applying for their job wherever it might be.
Yeah.
That's, have a response prepared.
Nice. Yeah, I really love that as well, in terms of if you think something is going to be a red flag, and it's a tricky one, isn't it? And that's where, again, just a 30-minute consultation, book in 30 minutes, have a chat to one of the team and talk about some of these things that we are worried about, time away from the thing, or not living in the right place for where the jobs are, or you've got to move because your partner's moving, and these sorts of things. It can it can take that worry away, or have somebody reassure you or give you a different perspective sometimes on that worry. So I fully agree with Susie that, particularly if it's a graduate position, an accounting postgraduate position in Sydney, and you're in Melbourne, and as Susie said, everything's Melbourne or whatever, and you are genuinely moving, you're moving down there, or you're open to moving down there, and you want to really to highlight that, say that you're on your way, or I've chosen Victoria as Melbourne is the destination to complete the next few years of my career. I'm excited to be living in the city, etc., be joining family down there, what have you. Great question. Thank you. So please, if any of these sorts of things come up, because these are all the little things, where there's so much to cover here, but, all these little things that come up can be the things that can actually, not in every case, but from time to time, sway the application in a particular direction. I'll just finish I'm conscious of the time, I'll finish this cover letter sample here. So do your hook. And last week I mentioned, I've only seen a student do it once, but what they did was, I really loved it. They brought the paragraph for why they really want to work for, in the case I've given you, AAT Kings. He or she just spelled out the pure excitement that came from reading that ad in her first paragraph. Generally, we say it to do it down here in paragraph 4. But I saw a student recently that did it in the first paragraph, and it was like, yeah, wow, I do believe you want to work for us. And employers want people who fit, as Susie said, the glove, and that comes by demonstrating that fit. One of the things that came up when both Susie and Alison were talking was evidence. So what often happens, particularly when we're not familiar with writing cover letters, is that we say we've got communication skills and problem-solving skills and time management and organisation, and they are all valid. But the employer wants to see how and where you gained them, doing, in what capacity. And the capacity in which you improved your time management skills, your organisational skills, some of those key employability skills, the capacity is your story. And that's what makes it interesting and unique and makes you you. And there, I heard someone who, this lady who started this, she sold $1 billion company in the US, a makeup company, and it's one of those fabulous true stories. And she's now, obviously after she's done that, she's, coaches in the space of, helping people with business. But one of her catchphrases is that there is no one on the planet like you. There's only one of you. And so I just think that's really beautiful, because when I see students really grasp that concept that you are unique, and you have an enormous amount to offer, and there is only one of you. And when you're able to communicate that, you are on fire. So you communicate that back. If we go back to that earlier slide that I showed you with your hobbies and your interests and your part-time job and the things you've done at uni, your story, you might be one of 5 international students, in one of your classes, but your background, you may have come from the same university, but your actual background, your experience, your values, who you are, there may be some similarities, of course, but your story is yours. So you want to communicate that story in your cover letter, continue it, expand on it, as Susie said, in your resume, and then bring it home in your resume, in your interview. So that comes in paragraph 2. You're giving catchy competency statements. So these are briefly outlined in relevant knowledge, skills, attitudes, and abilities gained through your work, and you're communicating that, and demonstrating, as Susie said, you're fit for the organisation. If you can fit really full paragraphs in that middle bit there, those paragraphs need more detail, those 1, 2, and 3, than the closing. You don't need to thank them and thank them and thank them and thank them again at the end. You want to give them as much information of examples of reasons associated with your knowledge, skills, attributes, etc. And then why you want to work for AET Kings, because it looks like an exciting. They're one of the best in the business. They've been around. You value the customers that you've worked with in your surf, dive, and ski role, and when you worked at McDonald's, it's beautifully aligned with the way that they care for their customers, etc. Now, down the bottom here, you can just do an electronic signature, which is really just type your name in a normal font and then just change the font, but also type your name, your full name after that, because I know that if anyone had to read my signature, they would not know. So it's just nice to cap off the cover letter. Always, always, always read the job advert. So even if you're going for 5 tour guiding job roles, some might want generally they don't say a half-page cover letter, but they might want 2 pages, and they might tell you specific criteria. So they may have 1, 2, 3, 4 points, and they might ask you to speak directly to those points in a cover letter, or a cover letter and a separate selection criteria, which we'll move into in a minute. But they're giving you the information of what they want. So please, please, please follow the instructions from the job advertisement, or wherever you found out about the job. What do we got here? Just make sure we check in here. Oh, no. Well, good, Susie. Thank you. Here we go. A little love emoji. Where did that go? That's supposed to be for you. I love that we're in a world of loving on everything. All right. Fabulous. So, any questions to this point before I start to wrap it up and also talk about selection criteria? All right, beautiful. Okay, so let's I'm going to go back to the slides. I'm going to stop sharing that one here, and then I'm going to share this one here. Okay. So when you might like to you'll get a copy of this, but this is just some questions that I have found that I've enjoyed using from various different workshops with students. Just some other ideas. Often when we can ask the same thing in different ways of ourselves, it can help us unpack things. So if you have done some sort of internship or placement or recent role, key learning, so you can talk about it from that perspective, the outcome of your learning. So it could be the outcome of the learning, maybe you did marketing previously, as an example, before your MBA. What were the most valuable things that you've learned from working in hospitality, for example? Or things that you have done in caring for family or organizational values, etc. So I love some of the things, the prompts in this. Contribution is absolutely critical. So when you're communicating with your cover letter, the employer wants to know not that you had to serve the tables when you were at the local cafe. It's how well you serve the tables. So the level of cleanliness, the attention to your customers, how quickly, what sort of feedback, what sort of relationships you built with, the regulars. What other improvements? Maybe you shared feedback back to the supervisors, back to the chef, about people wanting more gluten-free, etc. Or the coffee not tasting so fabulous today. You probably focus on the good things or areas from prep, but not things that aren't going well. But just as an example. Question 4 there, was there anything noteworthy that you learned from mentors, supervisors, staff, students? And learning when you're in an interview, when you talk about things you've learned, it can show like another level of confidence in that it's like showing them that I'm already in this field, and and by being a postgraduate student, you're already an ongoing learner. So talking about it from a learning perspective, I've learned this by, my things I've learned from my supervisor or somebody on the placement, supervisor, etc. Learning can be a really nice way to approach it. So much of the coaching, well-being, business space is around our strengths and our key strengths. I'll put a nice little, one of my favourite, there's so many great, Susie's team use this as well. It's used a lot in positive psychology. I think I mentioned it last week, the VIA character strengths. If you just type in VIA character strengths, you'll find it's a great, just to help you learn more about who you are. It's done by a group of scientists who studied human beings' character, via character strengths. And it's a free survey, so nice one to, if you're interested in learning more about who you are and also having more to write about, so you can here are some other few things that might be helpful: promotions, increasing sales figures, running a project change, being part of a team, winning awards, customer service, etc., sporting achievements, and so on. Here's just another a visual of that with a couple of things highlighted. So make sure, I've talked about this, make sure you research the employers. There are clues there. And remember to use cues from the job advertisement. So here's just a recap of the winning cover letter tips. So tailor it always. So apply for much less jobs and spend far 10 times the amount of time. That sounds terrible, but that's the truth. Once you get a hit on them, I call it a hit, then you can, you don't need to put, but initially you got to put that love in, get feedback, keep asking questions, try lots of different tools. Okay, so use keywords that are similar to the advertisement, include relevant experience, skills, things that are relevant. And we can make, with framing, we can make a lot of things relevant, things from your sporting. So when you work in a team, in a sporting team, you need to collaborate, you need to coordinate often. When you're on whether it's a netball game, coordinate your movements, your strategy. You've got to work towards a goal in team sports. You've got to, and you can make that relevant to the workplace, where you've got to coordinate with others to achieve the organisational goals and mission and the vision. Focus on specific evidence-based, so examples, maximum of 1 page, and use concise paragraphs. I would always suggest a good solid paragraph is between 4 and 6 sentences. Often cover letters are too brief in terms of, how many words are actually on that page. Moving right along, and we'll finish up with talking about selection criteria. Now, I'm conscious that this can sometimes be confusing for people, so I'll try to simplify it as best as I can. So I showed you a job advertisement and the one for AET Kings, and essentially they are telling you, they didn't talk about, I don't think they talked about qualifications. Let's see, we didn't. No. Let's talk about qualifications at all. The job advertisement, many instances, will tell you the level of qualifications, what sort of person you are, highly organised. So they've told you, they're looking for someone who offers unparalleled customer service, skills, ability, knowledge and experience that person needs to perform the role. Now, I'm just going to turn this off so that I can talk to you. Hopefully you just see me now. I'll stop sharing that for a minute. So you just get moi. Often, depending on what sort of work you go into, let me backtrack a little bit. So if you go and work in Australia, in federal government, state government, local government, so council, anything that is funded, largely funded by the government, a hospital, universities, schools, politics, the defence, the police force. If you go into one of those professions, because they are taxpayers' money, and the not-for-profit sector, depending on the type of not-for-profit, they are, and the size and the scale of that not-for-profit, there is greater transparency required in the recruitment. I mean, there should be transparency in all of the recruitment processes, but there is, we as taxpayers and of our public service, so people in government funded roles that are funded by us as the community, we have a certain expectation that there is transparency in that process. And so as part of that recruitment process, invariably they will ask that you address specific selection criteria. But when they do that, they can ask you to do it as part of a cover letter, but they can also sometimes Susie does a lot of work with the nurses, occupational therapy, our social workers, our teachers. So if any of you guys in those areas of profession and you're going to work in mental health, Tweed Hospital, they will require you to address separate selection criteria. Now, everything that I have just said about answering the job advertisement, etc., actually applies as part of the separate selection criteria, but it's a step further. So they may give you separate. They may give you, depending on the job, 6 separate selection criteria, and you may need to submit that as a separate document in addition to your cover letter, or it may say as a part of a 2-page cover letter. So very, very important to read the requirements. And the reason that they do that is you are being assessed on your the criteria that they have asked for, and that you ideally that and it still doesn't. It's supposed to reduce things like people employing their mates into job, etc. To keep it in its simplest form, to keep it transparent, so clear upfront. Unfortunately, if anybody watches the media, it doesn't always go like that. There have been plenty of examples, and quite recently, of senior government officials in Australia being recruited into role, and they call it jobs for the boys. And where the process, following due diligence around who reviews the application and what criteria each candidate is measured against, hasn't been followed. But ideally, it is there to limit jobs for the boys, so to speak. And so, depending on, I'd say as a percentage, postgraduate of Alison, what percentage would you say of, because I know that our cohorts and the types of degrees change, what percentage of the courses that we're offering now are going to, in a postgrad capacity, like 30 or 40%, do you think, or less, would have potentially selection criteria, separate selection criteria?
I think at that level, my guess would be all of them. I don't really know, but if an employer's asking for a postgraduate education level, then it's a higher level job. So I don't know. We'd have to do some research on that, but
yeah,
say a lot, or if not all, or most. If they're requiring a postgrad education level, then it's a higher level set of responsibilities and quite specific. This job I went for had something like 10 selection criteria to answer. And this is a project officer. Yeah. So
because I was thinking about, like, because many of them are doing things like business and tourism, which, unless they're going for jobs with Tourism Australia or Tourism Queensland or local council, lots of that business arena won't have the separate. But our education, our PhD, certainly all of the PhD, all of the education, our social workers, our psychology students, our postgrad nurses will definitely have that. And everything that I have said to date, for the last, all of that applies, because you are still telling them a story. You are still telling them you and your specific experience, your key achievements, but it's just that step further. So I want to loop back. Yeah, it's food for thought, isn't it? Because I know that our cohorts change, don't they? In terms of, we've got another postgrad qualification as we move through. All right, let me pop. But I know for our business students, it's probably the least likely. But anybody who's got anybody in health, anybody in education, unless you go in, but even if you're in education, you go into not-for-profits, you're going to come across selection criteria.
Yep.
So what a selection criteria is that a person needs to perform to be able to perform the role effectively. And this previous slide back here is also wonderful for, where did it go? These two slides here, this one and this one, are also great places when you're thinking about how to unpack that. But you must answer the question and weave your own experience into the question. They're most often addressed in writing, but you will expand on them likely in the interview. So they may say, you talked about this, tell us more about that project that you worked on, etc. They are also the process when we're talking about transparency, and I always have a little giggle about this, because I know plenty of people that are incredibly well suited. They've written beautiful applications, but there can be smoke and mirror in terms of organisations, I won't name any, that can put out applicants, but then they're just recruiting somebody internally for the role. And so if you do get knocked back, keep that in mind. Having a thick skin through this and not taking it personally, because sometimes there can be smoke and mirrors. I'll be really honest. But if you don't follow the protocol, then you won't get that chance if there are no smoke and mirrors. So please regardless of, you put your best foot forward and keep refining and improving your examples. But it's ideally to shortlist the best applicants based on that criteria, and it forms the basis for the interview, and it's to compare applicants' responses against one another. And it's also, as I've said, to ensure, and I put in probably in inverted commas, to ensure fairness. So the format, this slide is all and everything that you need to know. This hasn't changed in the time, I don't know, the only thing that has changed is this extra R in recent years. So addressing selection criteria, just like telling a story. So you're going to think of a situation or a problem you solved, and that could be in your part-time work, that could be in your study, that could be in managing your Airbnb, that could be helping out at the community fair, that could be any situation in as professional as you can get context. But even a personal situation, you can, with the appropriate framing, you can use that as a good example. What specific tasks? So don't spend too much time on, it was a sunny day and I was, at the event and there was 55 other people there. Just give it to the briefly. These first two bits, setting the scene, is the briefest component. Then all the detail comes in terms of what specific action, what did you do? So back to what I was saying before about the results of your work, about how beautifully you serve that customer, etc. And how did you go about doing it? You did it by, listening really attentively to their problems. You assured them that you understood and heard their complaint, you empathized with them, etc. And then you went about organizing that refund for them, etc. or it might be a journal article that you've contributed to, and you're on the team, and this is the bit that these are the components that you wrote. This was the feedback that you got from others involved in that, and then what you learnt from that. Additional skills you gain from contributing to working in an academic setting, just as an example. So you will be being assessed on your ability to demonstrate, key word there, the following capabilities, knowledge, and experience. The ideal applicant will be someone who has proven, and that's what this process is. You need to be able to prove. And Alison's just shared that she had academia or universities, no matter what role, can be notorious for selection criteria. Proven. So you need to prove, demonstrate, give examples. So here's one, ability to communicate. This is in just about every, and I just have a bit of a giggle that they still ask for this in things like, a role like Alison, a role like Alison's role. There's a certain point in one's life where it should be clear that you can communicate. But anyway, never mind. So I love, again, we've got a mind mapping activity that you can have here. So if we just take something like communication skills, these are some of the places where it can be used. So electronic communication in your written, diversity, so diversity and inclusion, so communicating with different stakeholders, but also communicating in a way that is inclusive of different needs, different cultural backgrounds, etc., conflicting ideas, colleagues, etc. Just as one example. So here are a few do's and don'ts. Always, they say that, I've never forgotten this, they say that men are much more likely to apply for a job that they don't have all the criteria for than women do. And so if you don't have all of the criteria, particularly if there's 10, talk about everything that you do have and also your willingness to gain. So it might be you haven't quite finished, getting all your paperwork together. So you haven't, if you're in something to do with social work or nursing or even health, you haven't quite yet got your police check or some other security clearance. You just say that you're willing, that you're willing, or it's in action, or it's in progress, willing to get it. And also the criteria often is like from top to bottom. So some of the, they'll say essential criteria, and sometimes they'll say essential and desired. I would address all of it. But put the love into the essential, because that is what is required to do the job. Try to add results, outcome, give specific examples, be positive, be succinct, and be honest. And what I find, I see it all the time, and it's a natural thing that happens. Always avoid telling them what you don't have, even if you don't have it and you're anxious about something you don't have. Tell them everything you do have. So leave out any, I don't have enough part-time experience, or I haven't done enough research in that area, or I haven't worked in academia, or I haven't worked in a university, or I haven't worked in community events. Whatever it is, just focus on everything that you have done, because you've already done so much to get to this point. So here's just one example here. You're welcome to, you'll get a copy of the slides here. So demonstrated effective, I don't think I've ever seen a selection criteria that hasn't got communication in there somewhere. But if you look at this example, so important to start with a lead introductory sentence. I have 3 years experience in India as a nurse, communicating with a wide range of different people in different. So she's setting the scene. This is additionally supported by 1 year experience gained as an assistant in nursing in Australia. Here's an example. So the next, then straight into the first S of the star. An example where I was able to demonstrate communication skills was where during a clinical a clinical placement at Lismore-based hospital in A&E, the type of patient and the type of presenting condition. The task and the action, I realised, etc., etc. The nature of the patient, what was going on, and the action. So here's the action. I contributed to the effectiveness of this situation by doing X, Y, Z. So it's your actions. What did you do? And these last bits of selection criteria, that is most important. Your results of your work, so my action contributed to a timely positive patient outcome, the doctor, da-da-da-da-da. And then also the results, so what also happened, respectful, clear communication, professional, they love multidisciplinary teams, and a reflection. So I won't go into all of this, but here is another example for you. So this is what, when you look at a job advertisements, so Alison just mentioned that she had 7 in hers. So this is often what a job, so the rest of the job advertisement would look like, you know, possibly what I've just shown you, but it will say you will be assessed on da-da-da, and then they'll give you this. So ability to deliver X, ability to practice this, so legislation, policies, procedure, commitment to, and you're going to, what I always suggest to people is copy and paste it, stick it into a Word document, and then write your responses underneath and keep the heading in there so that it makes it really easy for the recruiter. And, you know, even if you put numbers in there, if it says essential and desired, put so copy what they, and insert your responses in the order that they, don't change the order, in the order. You want to make it as simple for them as possible, and in the way that they have done it. And I'll just skip back here, and I'll put my screen on before I go to that final slide there. My pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My top tips to wrap the selection criteria up is use the careers team. They are, or myself if it comes that you've got something coming up at the back of these, or when we come back during the year. But if it's outside of those times, Susie and the team, they are fabulous they're working really, really closely with, well, all the faculties, but they work really closely with the teams that have to write selection criteria all of the time. And having, as Alison said, like having that extra pair of eyes, but also to get you to work on the types of examples and the results. When we're sort of in something like that, we kind of get lost in the detail of the task and the responsibilities rather than the outcome of your work. Make sure you follow, so if they want it on 2 pages, make sure it's on 2 pages. They will want you to respond to all of them. If there's desired, address the desired, but spend your effort and your love in the essential. Make sure you use things like Grammarly and the careers team. You can use other, there are other free services available that you can get to review, but you've got your own private consultants. So I actually wouldn't go. I wouldn't go elsewhere. And also, if you're graduating soon, you can use the team for an extra 2 years after you graduate as well. So that's a real ding-a-ling-a-ling, because you might have something lined up immediately, or you might fall into something immediately, and then perhaps you have to relocate with your partner, or you want to, you've been in small business and now you want to get into government. And then you're like, oh, hang on, I don't know how to write a selection criteria. You've been here, but you've forgotten how to do it, and you need some help. So with selection criteria in particular, until you're writing them all the time or getting some wins, I would absolutely suggest getting somebody to help you unpack those responses. Also, and we'll talk about this as we come into the interview, is being prepared to talk about those responses in the interview, because that is also part of that selection criteria process, and being willing to expand and having your story down, knowing that story inside out, and having a couple of other examples in case they kind of, what's the word? Somebody used the word the other day, ambush you with something out of, because what I'm finding in this space is things were very traditional, around the whole kind of when and how recruiters recruited people and what order and what format. I am hearing and experiencing all sorts of different things that are not necessarily, how would you put it? Somebody could question the ethics. So, for example, I knew an academic recently, and he was told he was being asked for a chat, just as an example. Then he turned up, and there was a full panel in there, and he was really upset, as you would be, and it was with a big university in Sydney. And so, here's my tip: if you get asked for a chat in anything, in an email, anything, if they're asking you for a chat, they're asking you for an interview. But just as an example of the sorts of things, another example recently, somebody got a contract and then they went and checked the referees after the position had been offered in academia again. So what I say to people now is be prepared for anything. Be prepared for that phone call on the road while you're driving and they're calling you to give you the full interview, well, I say full interview. There's all sorts of it up until maybe a few years before the pandemic, it was all very like this. What I have seen, I say now, be prepared for anything. And if they have been slightly inappropriate in terms of perhaps putting you on the spot, it's okay to say thank you so much for the call, or can you send this to me by this afternoon? You say, or ASAP. It's okay to say thank you so much. I'm just in a meeting, or I'm just here, I'm out. I will get that to you immediately. It's okay to put those so that you have enough time to not work on their schedule, but make sure you can still put your best cover letter, resume, interview forward as well. It will also show a little bit of confidence as well. So just be mindful of that if you need to, they've asked you for some additional information and they need it yesterday, it's okay to, you get it to them that night or, the next morning, but slow it down so you can give them your best as well, okay, in this kind of world where everybody wants everything and, that kind of thing, all right? 5 minutes for questions. We've got more. I'm happy to stay longer. Oh, good. Oh, so lovely. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Shannon and Rissa and Hasini and Hajit, is there anything that you guys, because I love questions because often they're things that they're just great. I love them. And if I don't know the answer, someone will.
Hi, Bec.
Hi.
Actually, I just want to ask, is it okay to create a cover letter or the resume at the time when you're studying? Because I'm currently studying graduate diploma in early childhood education, and I just want to work on the things that can help me to come into my profession. So, but I haven't completed yet. So, is that okay if I'll write my cover letter and resume and show it to the careers team?
Yes, because I'm sure Susie would agree with this, our best students come to the careers team. And the more that you can engage and talk about and have that connection with them, they can prompt you, have you thought about this? Have you top of mind when something related to something that you've said you're interested in? Absolutely. And also your resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, selection criteria, they're kind of working documents as well. So there's no harm in getting it. And also it'll make it easier if, you know, something happens, your circumstances change, or Susie sends you, hey, did you know there's a job down the road? These things happen. The more you connect with people, it kind of increases your opportunity for somebody to say, hey, did you know that? So absolutely, I don't think there's too soon a time. I think it's a great idea. And then it will also help you think about how you can, so are you in your first year?
No, yeah, it's a 1 year course actually. I'm just be halfway through.
Perfect. Then that is absolute. Yes. Get 100%. Yes. And then
So I
also
need
if
to
you
book an appointment with them.
say that again, sorry.
So I need to book an appointment with the career, and after that they're gonna answer me.
Yes. Yeah.
I
So they
think it's a
have
lower
appointment.
bandwidth.
Oh no,
Mm.
you're fine. They have
Do I need
appointments.
to book an appointment?
Yes, they have appointments available. Oh, just about every other day of the week, you can get an appointment with the team. Are you based near Lismore or at the Gold Coast?
I'm in Melbourne.
Oh, Melbourne. Oh, nice. So an online meeting. So they have different.
Yes.
So they can do that. They change it slightly. They can do like just a review of your, of your documents. But do you know what, Harjeet? I think that in that I worked with Susie's team a number of years ago, and I think one of the best things to do is to have that initial chat with somebody like you've met Susie. Book in with Susie when she's free, or one of the other team, and then just talk through where you're up to, where you're at as well, as an additional way, because it can help you. What I always found is that in that chat, we can unpack things. And also, when you start to talk about what you've done, when we just launch straight into writing our cover letter and we haven't talked to a partner or a friend or a professional, our family and our friends and our partners, they remember stuff that we forget. And so it's not until we start talking about what we've done, it brings it us, but also can give you that chance to just get some feedback about where you're at, what you're doing. So I would suggest, if you have the time, it's not essential, and there's no cost involved, but it can be helpful just to air some of those questions, curiosities, concerns, and also just get feedback about what's happening in that area, what we know, connections, sites, all sorts of things. So that would be my suggestion, is to book in for a consultation, particularly, and this would apply to anybody that's kind of halfway through, and you can meet with me. I'll put some times up at the end. Meet with me at the end of this series. But if it's outside of this time period, take the time to have 2 sessions with the careers team, so that you can have that chat. And if you're halfway through, that is a fantastic. The earlier the better that you engage with them and get that one-on-one, because it's just all about you, and it's just really nice to have someone just to focus on you, and your situation, and then give you some perspective on where you're at, and then work on those documents. But that's just a suggestion. You can launch straight into doing the documents with the team, or whether it's me or whoever. But it's
Yeah,
nice to
actually, I
just
just really want to retain these things because being an international student, it's a quite new for me to address all these things.
yeah,
I have learned this in a very different way, in my previous studies. But yeah, I really want to be a part of this profession.
beautiful.
So I really want to
Yes,
learn how to align with these criteria, these documents.
beautiful. And even just the way that you have framed that, Harjit, I have no doubt you will. because you've shown up and you actually know where the gap is for you, and you're actually able to articulate that. So you actually are halfway to solving the problem. And it's not a problem. It's just normal that when we're in a different environment, you know, we transfer over and we've got to you've got to adjust to the environment that you're in terms of the requirements. So good for you. Love it.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the valuable information that you shared.
My pleasure. So I love being here with these guys. We're really lucky. We've got you've got great support with the Postgraduate Association and the Careers team. So thank you so much. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. And so the postgraduate team, Alison's team, are here to help you with all those extra things that they do. Susie's team, and then I'm here with you. I am back. I wanted to show you the slide. I'll just show you and then we'll wrap it up. I'm here back. So next week, the 17th, we are here again on Zoom, and you'll get the links through to you after you sign up, same way as you did for the other one. And we are doing another one of my favourite topics. I enjoy these so much. Resumes and LinkedIn. And, you know, interestingly enough, each time we do the next round of these, things change and things, you know, the landscape shifts a little bit. So I will be excited, me, myself and I and the team, back with you next week. And take good care. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Thank you. It actually means a lot, because I know when you're so busy to actually sit in a class online. So we appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Alison. Oh, your sound.
Unmute. Yes, you've stopped the recording.
Oh, beautiful. All right. Happy weekend, everybody.
Yeah, have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you for staying here, Alison. I really appreciate it. It's lovely.
No problem at all.
I love you. I still love your green vase.
Can we stop the recording?
Oh, sorry.
You're the boss.
Oh, sorry. Well, now everybody gets that extra bit at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, it was stopped.
Really?
Excuse me, Bec.
Yeah.
My exam before. I just want to ask for the selection criteria.
Oh, criteria, yes.
When we need to prepare that?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Rissa. So when